that's a triple play. New episodes, I couldn't wait. Yeah, open your mind at the first gate. Press play, no need to debate. AoA, check me out. Look, plugged in, you can catch the hype. Golden Dawn, how we follow the light. Anime like life, married to it, my wife.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages? Welcome back to the AoA show. I'm your host, as always, Ian, along with the boy Isaiah.
Oh.
And today we are talking Haikyu, which will come as a surprise to some of you folks out there. Some of you might be like, Ian, what? This is literally coming out of left field, out of nowhere, right? But for those of you who don't know, we've been reacting to Haikyu. And while all of our reaction videos to the first season have not been published yet, we just finished season 1 and we want to talk about it. So we're here to talk about it today. We wanted to review the first season, what we liked, what we didn't like, some of the standout characters, moments, the overall impression we got of the show, etc., and just talk about our experience when it came to it. And for anyone now that knows that we react to it, you can catch that on the AoA Reacts channel. The link is in the description down below, where we will definitely be continuing with the entirety of this show among many other shows that we react to. So definitely come check us out if you haven't already. You want to catch our reaction to that. But here we are. We're going to talk about it. So I think this is, I would be hard pressed to believe that many people that are watching this don't know what the hell Haikyuu is, or what it is, like what the premise is, all that kind of stuff. Maybe you just wanted to hear us talk. And for that, I am flattered. But so I don't want to go through like the entirety of what happens, but just a quick overview for anyone that maybe is watching us to watch us. Thank you. Haikyu is a sports volleyball anime. The main character being Shoyo Hinata, just call him Hinata, much easier. And Hinata has aspirations of being a fantastic volleyball player. He was inspired at a young age from the little giant, who is this elusive character that was really good. And he was at like nationals, and it was a whole crazy thing. And so he plays his damn heart out in his middle school years, not being able to formulate a team. They didn't have a team. So he gets some of the kids from the basketball team and like various other, sports, that just through his sheer indomitable will and his drive to succeed in this, they gravitate towards his charisma, and they decide to tag along with him, and they get to play one game and one game only. And they lose it, but they have fun while doing it. But Hinata is like, I got a taste. Like, this is my first and last game I got to play in middle school. Like, I'm doing this come hell or high water when it comes to high school now. So then he goes into high school and then, joins Team Karasuno, which has a incredible cast of very lovable players that we get to see throughout. And through it all, every protagonist needs a great rival / best friend to spur them on in the moment and hit them in the head when they're doing something wrong and center them when they've gone astray. And that would be Tobio Kageyama, who is basically this incredibly talented figure, kind of a jerk at times, very standoffish, the opposite of your standard protagonist, who played against Hinata and recognized his skill in that middle school game, and now somehow ends up at his high school, although he shouldn't have ended up there for his skill. But you realize that Kageyama's got some problems of his own, more on a personable and sociable level, kind of learning how to read people and be kind and understand that this is a team-oriented sport. And through that, this budding relationship grows, and this fantastic team, and they play some damn volleyball. So that's the premise of it. You should definitely watch it if you haven't already, because it's absolutely fantastic. Spoiler alert. But I wonder, just in general, if there was anything that you wanted to bring up about what you liked or disliked about the show. Anything stand out, just in general. Hit me with something. I know you love the show.
So I am in love with the show. It's a more accurate way to describe it.
It's good.
But yeah, one of the things that I love, just to start off simple, that you brought up is the characters, right? So you're talking about Hinata, talking about Kageyama, but obviously we meet so many more other characters, mainly focusing on the rest of the Karasuno volleyball team. But I would even go so far as to say just most of the characters that we meet in general, right? People, when we start our reactions, were saying this, but like, this show is so unique in that it really does get you in the mindset of and to care about more than just the protagonist team, right? More than just Karasuno's players. Like, what does, all the rival teams that they face feel like, because it's not, I've said this in many reactions, but it's just so true. This is a story about volleyball, but like, volleyball is the blanket that they use to tell this story. This story is really about a bunch of people getting together and enjoying and connecting with this thing that they all love more than anything else. And that's just as true for any of the teams Karasuno plays against as it is for Karasuno. So when the rival teams lose, like, you there's this, because we follow the Karasuno team, there's this innate yes, the boys won, but you do feel bad for the losing team because they didn't lose this game that they played half-assed that they don't really care about. Like, they lost a volleyball match, which to any team is like a devastating blow. Which I'm, gonna get the episode numbers fudged up. But when Karasuno played their first team, the one with Dachi's old friend on it,
in the tournament,
and then the female volleyball team from Karasuno, like, that's when it really hit home, just like how crushing defeat can be. In this specific instance, when like you have regrets about maybe not trying as hard as you could have, or not, sticking it out and really putting in that extra, 10% training, that extra day or whatever it may be. But regardless, whether you trained all your time or, maybe not as much, like, defeats are defeats. And for these people who really care about the sport, it sucks. So I love the way that this really does get you to give a damn, for lack of a better term, about every single player. I obviously, like I said, we have a special affinity for the Karasuno players. Those are the homeboys. But I love the way that this story tackles characters, because it's not, and I've said this, again too, the way that this story, is structured is very much like a character-driven story, right? It's not like like I said, the story has volleyball, and like that's a thing that happens, but like that's always the thing that's happening, right? It's whether it's the next game or the game after that or whatever. But it's like what the characters are going through in the in-between, and like how that's going to affect each game. Like, that's where the story is. So like it gets to this point where it's almost like, I almost don't care what they're doing. You fall in love with these characters enough. It's like, I'd fucking watch them cut grass, because it's like, they're just all so, anytime they get together, it's just a fun time. It's absolutely fun. And I spoiler alert, thoroughly enjoyed this season.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head there. They do such a fantastic job. And again, just to mirror what you said, volleyball is just the building block inserted. This could have been basketball, could have been football. It doesn't matter what it was. Like, this story is just so well put together and needs to be told, really. And when you could feel for these opposing teams and the members on them for as much as you feel for the boys, the Karasuno team, it just, it's fantastic storytelling and character development. And there's so much development within this show, which is fantastic. Like, one of the things that I was afraid of once we got a couple episodes in, I was like, usually you hop into some of these shonens or whatever, like anime, and you have a couple of select characters that you're like, oh, I like them a lot. And you have a couple that you're like, don't really like them. And it's easy, right? It's super easy at that point, because now you separate the wheat from the chaff. You're like, I like these guys. I don't like these guys. So I'm going to cheer when these guys do something cool, and I'm going to boo when these guys do something cool, which is such a tribalistic way of thinking about it, and silly. But I mean, like that, it happens, and it's all fun and games. But the thing with this show is that everyone's in the I like you camp, right? I was a couple episodes in, and I'm looking for that standout. Who do I dislike, right? Which is really terrible to think, right? But it happens, right? It's a hierarchy of characters here. And I noticed that I'm like, none. I don't really dislike any of these guys. Like, I really genuinely like all of them, except for maybe Tsukishima. Yeah. He stole my bottom. Yeah. We're still waiting for his development. Because everyone's like, it'll come. And I'm like, it's been a season, so you only got 3 of these left. I don't know when he's gonna start here, but so I think he would be, on the lower one now. But it's like, but even the ones that I don't, gravitate towards, I don't dislike them per se. Like, I don't hate him, right? It's just like maybe a personality thing. But all of them are great, which was kind of a double-edged sword, because I'm like, this is awesome, I like them, but then I'm like, shit, this is bad, I like them, right? Because only 6 of them can play at a given time, and we've already established that Daichi, Asahi, Suga, these are all third years, which, in Japanese schooling, that's your last year as a high school student. Yeah. I didn't realize, we actually just learned this in like the last episode, you can actually opt to stay back, not stay back in classes, but you could play club activities for another year apparently, which I did not know was a thing, which is kind of cool. And spoiler alert, which we get to see at the end, which is great, right? It kind of remedied some of the fears that I had for now. But you know, you're basically done, right? And that's probably pretty rare because you got to move on to college, do your studies, all that kind of stuff. So point being, though, I was really afraid because I was like, I like all of these characters, and I know that not all of them are not going to, you know, they're not going to be able to take the spotlight all at the same time. But I have to say, man, for a show that has so many likable characters, they have been able to highlight the vast majority of them, like when it's their turn to shine so well, right? I think like when it's the opposing team, when it's our team, all of them, right? Every time that they got their moment, it's like you love them for different reasons. So it's not like any of them are really overshadowed, right? Because like the things that I like Daichi for are not the same things that I like Kageyama for, right? So it's like Kageyama can still be his best self and Daichi can still be his best self, and it doesn't have to conflict. And I could be like, well, I just like both of those characters, right? Because they're vastly different people, but they're great for different reasons. And I think the show juggles that balance so well without other characters outshining characters and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people actually a lot of people have told us in our comments that Hinata isn't even like their favorite character a lot of times. And he's great though. Like I love Hinata, right? But it's like, that's the point, is like all of these characters are so likable. And I think that is a huge strength of the show, is that you don't have to be afraid of being like, oh, I'm going to be the outlier, that I like this guy or whatever. Cause it's like, they're all fantastic. Yeah. Like I know you love Nishinoya. I love Nishinoya too. Like it's really, I'd be hard pressed to believe that a lot of people would dislike certain characters. And I think that's one of the standout qualities of this show, like their development, everything that they have. I absolutely loved it. I also loved, and this is coming I'm showing my age, but this is coming more from me now that I'm, at the time of recording, 25, and kind of getting that nostalgia. Not that I ever played volleyball, but I played sports, right? When I was in high school, and I cried a couple times during this show just because the absolute love that these team members show for each other and the support system that they have from the coaches or the people. This is a school that doesn't even have a coach, an official coach, right? Because these kids are just getting together, and the amount of work that these people put in for the game, and the managers like Kyoko and gang, all of them, to make this a thing and to make this work and to have each other's backs through thick and thin. And when like the worst, happens, to not put each other down and to lift each other up. I would like to think happens more often, but unfortunately I've lived through quite the opposite, and it doesn't a lot of times. And it really comes down to everyone to try and be the best version of themselves, not for just themselves, but for others. And like this show just really hits you on that emotional level, because it's like, you're like living through it. Like you feel like you're living it again. I feel like some old man where it's like, I passed my prime and like, now I'm in here. But for real, man, it's like, I just wish sometimes that, I was like, you wish that you could be in that scenario again and do better. And you want to be better. You want to it's not just the past, like use this for the future. I don't know, man. I could gush all day, what do you got?
I completely agree, first off, with all of that. It's just, these characters make it, like you said, incredibly hard to find an outlier of somebody who's like, oh, I don't fuck with you, because they're all, and it weirdly mirrors the positions in a way, right? Because it's like a libero isn't a worse position than a setter, right? Yes. They're both great, but for different reasons, because and all to cultivating together is what makes them all as great as they can be. I definitely did have like the same thing though, where it's like, so one of the reasons that I gravitate toward, because I want to say early-ish on into our watching, probably the first couple, I want to say 6 episodes, because it was right around when Nishinoya gets introduced, which I think is episode 6 or 7. I started being like, okay, if I was on this team, like what position would I like really go for? Which one would I be? And again, like you said, I played sports, not like, it was mostly recreationally, but like not for the school, but I played sports in high school. And I've said this in the reactions too, that I played several sports growing up as a kid, but I never loved it, but it wasn't the sport itself. It was the fact that like my dad was a very like, you've got to do sports. That's it. So like, it was the fact that the choice was being taken away from me to do anything else, which is what made me grow a disdain for sports, but it was never for the thing itself. So watching this again, like, made me realize that, like, seeing these kids have such a passion for this thing, like, this is the thing that they want to do, and it matters to them literally more than anything else, like, is inspiring. You can't, one of the things that, like, I've always hear, and I hear, just time and time again, and anime does such a good job of reflecting this, is it's impossible not to become infected by somebody's passion for something, right? You watch somebody do something, and I mean somebody who absolutely loves what they're doing, and it's impossible, like, not to get caught up in that, because watching somebody give 110% to something is inspiring. It's the definition of inspiring, and it is that to watch any of these players. I mean, they would all some of my favorite scenes from this show are the moments where we're in the middle of a game and it's highlighting, the two characters who show this the most, and I assume this is by design, are Kageyama and Hinata, when they're like, oh, what are we going to do? And, like, for some reason or other, one of them has to get switched out, and the game is going on, but it's highlighting one of them off on the bench, and it's just, they start, like, getting this, like, almost animalistic, like sound in the back of their head, and they're like, I got to get back on the court. I need to be on the court. Please just let me, like, this want and, like, need to be on the court. Like, it matters more than anything to them, and they have to do it. They just have to be there. It's so, I don't want to repeat the same, but it's just absolutely inspiring to watch. And you're like, it makes me, like I said, somebody who has up until now been like, sports, shit's overrated, be like, all right, let's go. Like, I'm ready to lace up and get back on the court with you, because it's, you want to be there. And like you said, the support that not only do these players have for, like, themselves and the sport that they love, but for each other, right? This is sports in general, is a by nature competitive thing. So it's easy to see the link and assume that the players are competitive with each other, right? It's very easy, and like you said, probably happens more often than not in the real world, where, like, let's say you're starting on a volleyball team, and, like, you want to be, let's say, like, you're in Hinata's position. There's so many scenarios, places, teams, people, whatever, that would probably kick Hinata until he, like, quits, right? And, like, make him not like the game because they would just be so hostile to him. But, like, that's not what happens here. And it not only with people like the other Karasuno boys, because obviously they're all on the same team, so, like, on some level you have to, like, find that synergy. But the rivals, like, they're not, like, shit talking the other team so that they quit volleyball. Because if they love volleyball as much as we do, like, that's what matters. If you love this sport as much as I do, then I want you on that court, like, opposite me, because those are the kinds of people I want to be playing. And so, like, Hinata gets the stuff, of course, obviously, because that, like, it's like, oh, he's short, like, shrimpy kid or whatever. But, like, nobody ever is, like, discouraged from playing the game, right? And I love that, that inclusivity, and, it really does say that, like, anybody can play, you know what I mean? Anybody can do anything. Hinata, again, is the standout because, by design, his character, generally short people have it rougher playing volleyball, considering that some of the main things involve being length, height. Nishinoya has the same thing too. It's incredibly inspiring how good of a libero he is considering his height. And I think, just to get into that real quick, one of the things, because yes, Nishinoya is definitely my favorite and my standout, because to answer that question from the beginning, if I had to pick a position, I would probably pick libero. And I love this idea, and Nishinoya echoes it beautifully when he's introduced, that, like, there is no such thing as, like, a star position. There is no such thing as, like, the best player on the team or the most important player. Because as this season does beautifully echo, you are nothing without your team. You can't win a game by yourself. This game is not played 1v1 or 1v6. It's played 6v6. You have a whole group of people that you need to depend on in order to win a game. And so whether you are the person setting the ball, whether you're the person spiking, whether you're the person receiving, whether you're the libero, like, everything everybody does is what gets you guys the win. I'm fudging it up and paraphrasing, but one of the things that they throw around in the show is the team that fails to keep the ball, or the team that fails to keep the ball in the air or whatever, like, is the team that loses, right? Basically implying that, like, it's the teams that are the most connected, the ones that have the most flow. We see this the first with the Nekuma team. The teams that are so synergized that know how to utilize everybody's position and effectiveness to the fullest, they're the ones that win, because it's not about having, like, the hardest spike or the best serve. It's about being able to keep that ball off the ground, right? Keep it off the court. Those are the teams who win, and that's why Nakuma wins against Karasuno. And in the end, even though like it's by a hair, and I'm like, honestly, bro, like if the wind was blowing a different way, I feel like Karasuno could have taken the W. But it is ultimately one of the reasons that Karasuno loses in the finale episode. And it's just, but like through it all, like Nishinoya is not out here. He's an incredibly skilled athlete, and he's an incredibly good person. But he's a good person because he understands that like his job is to help his team. That's it. And like the libero position embodies that so well. You are literally the defense. Your job, like, you know, this line that he has when we first meet him and through his altercations with Asai, it's like, dude, I'm going to do whatever I have to keep this ball in the air. Don't worry. Like, I will set this thing up for you. Just spike it. Don't worry. I am always going to be behind you. And it just hits because it, you know, one, on a literal front as far as the team and the positions that they play, but also, like I said, like on a personal level, because these people are people, they're characters, right? And it's like at that time you have the whole conflict with Asai kind of being, you know, down on himself and like really deciding if he even likes volleyball anymore. And that whole point being emphasized through Nishinoya of like, dude, you're not fighting this fight alone. When you're on this court, there's always somebody behind you. Like, trust in these people, trust in me. I'm going to do whatever I can to keep your back from hitting the ground. So you just worry about looking in front. And it's like, he's like, the way he like has that talk with Hinata where he's like, dude, it doesn't matter what your position is, how cool it is, how close you are to the front of the court. Like, if you're scoring for us, if you're helping your team, like, that's pretty cool to me. And it's like, dude. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I absolutely love it.
No, I love, like I said, I think it does the perfect blend of having this emphasis on the individual, but then also commingling that and intertwining that with the team dynamic, with this community dynamic, because it's like you know, exemplified with Nishinoya, takes his position with utmost seriousness, and it is hella inspiring to watch him do it. Every time he saves a ball, which for all intents and purposes doesn't seem to be that exciting on the surface, we're screaming every time. He just literally just gets the ball. Yeah! Like, it's not even like he's scoring, right? So, and, you know, you take the ace, you take whoever, you take the setter. They all, on an individual level, realize that they can't do this alone, but that they have to, but only alone can they perfect their piece of the puzzle to the utmost, you know, and to service then the people on the other team so that they can do that and not have to pick up the slack. So I think it commingles that perfectly within the show, where it's like you get enough of the individual and their growth and their position and all that kind of stuff, and then it also spills over into the team, which at the end of the day needs to be working in synergy. It's just fantastic the way that they bridge those two worlds with each other. And I also, just pick up, I think it was, they lose, spoiler alert, in the well, of course it's their last match because they lost, right? It was a tournament, so they get knocked out at the end, but I think it was so important for them to lose right there. Unfortunately, unfortunately it was very important for them to lose right there, because it showed how much work that they have to do, but it showed that this team really had a bunch of kind of like star people in their own positions and their own thing, but that connectedness is what they needed to capitalize on and work in that perfect synergy with each other. And they kind of get that down by the end, but now it's like, now we got it. Now let's like work on that. Right. So it meant a great deal that they lost that at the end, but it was like, I love that because there were consequences, I guess, right? That it wasn't going to be like, oh, we put in our time, we put in our 9 to 5, like we want it really bad, and that means that we're going to win no matter the odds. Dude, you look at those other teams, you look at what's his face, Okawa? Okaiwa. You know, he's watching tape till 3 a.m. and slamming a volleyball at the gym wall 4,000 times until his teammates are yelling at him that he's working too hard. Yeah. And it's like, that's just one example, but like, love or hate somebody's personality on the other team, just because Karasuno wants it does not mean that these other folks on the teams don't want it, right? Absolutely. So it's like, that doesn't just guarantee that you win because people want you to win. And I think that's a very important lesson to be learned, though, that they that those losses could come down the pipe, but don't grovel in that and don't think that that's the end of the world. Like, play on, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you can do this, like, and if you want it, though, you have to understand that other people want it too, and that means that you have to go that much harder. You have to be that much more connected with your teammates. There's just so much that goes into that dynamic there, which makes this really, to me, I know a lot of people say this for shows that they like, but they're like, the first season, It's really just the prequel. Now the show starts, right? A lot of people do that to like reel someone in, you know what I mean, on the fishing rod and be like, got him, he's already in. You know what I mean? But no, honestly, I do really think that this is a show that can exemplify that in the sense that, of course, the show starts in season 1, but like I think now we have a team now. It's not just a group of gifted individuals. It's a team. And now just like the potential, like the caps come off. There is no ceiling. It's just as far as we could shoot now, you know, as much work as we put in is as much as we're going to get back. So I thought that was something that was really cool. Were there any, unless there was anything else you want to talk about, were there any standout scenes, episodes, characters, whatever?
I mean, to be honest, yes.
Yeah.
Short answer. I could go through the whole season episode by episode, but I think for me, obviously the season tends to lean heavily on Hinata and Kageyama, right? And sort of like their integration into this team that is Karasuno, how they fit in, because while it's emphasized, like I said before, that like this whole team has to be a cohesive unit if we're going to get any wins ever, there is very specific emphasis placed on their duo specifically. The fact that these two are almost like chemically linked, and like once they get in the game, they can like literally read each other's minds because of just how well they work together and how well they flow. This is exemplified in their godlike quick attack, which is almost physics breaking from the looks of it, the way that they describe it, because, and to be honest, even when I think about it, like it is still kind of crazy where Kageyama does not set the ball in a spot for Hinata to jump up and hit it. He sets it exactly where it needs to be to get spiked over the net with like, or rather right to Hinata, like wherever the ball needs to be. And then Hinata, it like, that spot is where Hinata's hand's going to be. Yeah. And literally on instinct, Hinata just hits it. And it's like that coupled with Hinata's disgustingly amazing, jump and reflexes and speed and stamina, are overcompensate rather for the fact that he's short. And like it watching this thing we said like when we watching Nishinoya get a dope save or watching Asahi fucking plow through like 2 blockers or whatever. Anytime this quick attack came on screen, like it's an instant, goosebump like ride. It's just so incredible. Like I said, one of the things that's so lovely about this show is the passion that these players have for the sport. And it's like literally personified in something like that. Like you just see these two are so intrinsically linked that like when it comes to this sport, when it comes to this technique, like they just get it. They just read each other on this like subhuman level that doesn't exist with most players. I mean, again, one of my favorite things about it it's like, it's the technique itself, but it's like every time they would do it, at least like the first time, the courts would go silent. Like everybody would just shut up and would just be struck in awe because it's like, the fuck did they just do? Like I wasn't even, when did that happen? It's like, it's absolutely amazing. And one of my favorite moments is how many times they use that to their advantage, right? Because like I said, the show and by proxy, like the characters don't do anything to downright discourage any of the players, but there is obviously some like, not hate, but like some animosity towards thrown towards people like Hinata at the beginning when it's like, you're like fucking 4 feet. Like, how are you going to play volleyball? Like, you got to get over the net. And seeing this, every time they would show this, it's like, oh no, they're like kind of crazy when it comes to volleyball, but it's like, that's it. That's their thing. And it's like this season does. So I would actually say it does a lot to fine tune that relationship, because I think that, like I said, chemical synergy that they have was instantaneous, but it's very volatile, right? Because the two players, especially at the start of this season, didn't get along at all. So it's like, and that's, I love one of, when Coach Ukai, by the way, fucking Chad of a coach, like really if that nigga doesn't have a job in season 2, we're rioting. But he, when he first comes on to like start coaching the team, the first time he sees the quick attack, he's like, oh, I get it. Like those two grew up together, right? They're best friends since middle school. And the teacher's like, no, they like just met in high school. And he's like, that's impossible. Like that nigga's eyes aren't even open. And it's like, it's like the people are so impressed with the level of connectivity that they have, considering their animosity. And like you said before, I don't think it's just the friendship that fuels this. It's their rivalry, right? They're not just like buddy, we've loved each other forever. It's like, no, someday I'm going to beat you on the court, and it's like that innate like competitiveness, this world, in sports by proxy is a competitive world. So I love the way that that's personified, and love the way that Hinata and Kageyama's characters do have to grow and move forward in this arc, or rather this season. Hinata with this whole like realizing that, like really understanding what it means to be a team player, right? That like, again, like sort of what I was echoing with stuff like Nishinoya, just because you're not in front, just because you're not, always scoring points, like you playing on this team as a part of this team is the best thing you can do. And that's the coolest part of volleyball. It's not, being the ace. It's not being the star player. It's not being the fan favorite or whatever. And Kageyama, which, I think we center around a little bit more actually in this season, learning that lesson even more, because Kageyama is sort of on the opposite end where he's like, no, but I am the best. So like, I don't need anybody's help. I know how to control the court. Like just shut up and do what I say and we'll always win. We know that's not how shit works around here. So it's really nice getting Kageyama to sort of come around and realize that, like, to quote the show, there's no need for a lonely king in this game. This is not a solo game. This is a team game. And so, like, seeing him really, step into his own and learn to, like, embrace and understand his teammates through the help of wonderful characters like Mama Suma, learn that, like, if, again, Okaiwa has even echoed it in their matches that, the best setters, regardless who wins or loses the game, your position, the best setters are the ones who understand and can effectively utilize everybody's power to 100%, regardless who the player is. You have this godlike, like I said, superhuman connection with Hinata, but Hinata's not the only player on this team. You need to learn how to work with people like Suki. You need to learn how to work with people like Nishinoya. Like everybody, you need to understand where to, how to, when to, all of that stuff. And I think the way that this is drawn out through the season, and like you said, even with us ultimately taking the L, which still hurts me, it is a great character growth moment for the whole team, because like you said, as infectious and as just awe-inspiring as passion can be, passion is not the thing that, like, a guarantee. It is not the thing that makes you win a game. What does, though, is persistence, because the only way that you can win a game that win the next game is if you get up and try again, right? So it's like, again, the teacher coach, whose name is evading me, I will look it up in a second, but has this beautiful, line moment when Takeda when they lose the match and Hinata and Kageyama are outside and they're kind of like, really obviously in their heads and stuff because they're beating themselves up because they lost. He's like, you guys both were absolutely amazing on that court. The only thing that proves that you're weak is if you don't get up right now, because the people who are the real losers in this kind of situation are the ones who let these kinds of losses completely permanently cripple them, right? It's that old timeless saying of, like, you don't lose when you fall, you lose when you refuse to get back up, which this show, just so many lessons like that are echoed so beautifully. And it's like, multiple tears, just fits, because we just have to bring this up. The OST does not fucking help.
Oh my God,
because
I know,
there are
dude.
so many songs. I believe it's the same composer for My Hero, right?
I believe so. Somebody in our comments said that.
Because the way that this nigga composes music, bro, I swear to God, is like, it's got to be like some tactic from the devil himself, because it's unfair how quickly it, like, works itself through your ear into your body, and just all of a sudden you're like, watching this adequate scene or whatever between two people talking about their feelings, and that OST kicks in and you're like and it just completely fucks you up.
Yeah, just that, and accompanied by some of the fantastic speeches and writing, like the actual script that goes into this show was just so much passion was put behind that, and just the overwhelming amount of support, and seeing it from the higher ups too, like whether it be Daichi as a captain or Ukai as a coach or Takeda as the teacher, and all these people that are inspiring the younger generation, just the way that they orate themselves, right? The way that they speak to these kids with these words of encouragement, and telling them that you can do it, but also being tough when they need to be, right? And the way they blend that, though, like you said, with the OST so many times is like, excuse me, like, it's like, I can't even explain it. It's like a vortex of emotions just goes around, and you feel like you're there, and it's like you're just ready to go when you hear that kind of stuff. So it's like just that. I mean, the animation, everything, like, it's just all of it comes together to make a pretty great freaking show, for sure. I was wondering if you had any sort of, well, you kind of went in on, just the whole dynamic between Hinata, Kageyama and stuff, but one of my favorite moments was, you know what's ironic? A lot of my favorite character development moments, but also involved the team, were actually from Asahi, which is ironic because not that I dislike him as a character, he's great, but I think the added notion that he is not very confident and the fact that he is shy and that he has a lot of these inner anxieties and in this timid personality makes the fact that he goes to the extent that he does for his team and then for himself, importantly, equally as important, is very inspiring to see. And not to discount anyone else, but just like the fact that he, goes over that hurdle, and when to see him finally get over that, and especially I feel like it's symbolized in the spike because it's like now that he's over the net and he gets to power through these blockers, I almost feel like it's a symbolic thing for his emotional state, because sometimes you can't get around your problems, you have to push through them. I don't know. I drew these parallels to his character in that, and I really enjoyed the moments, especially I think it's episode 9, which is like one of the best episodes when he's like, I forgot one thing is that my team, I'm not alone in this fight or something. And then he does that like wicked spike for like the second or third time because the ball's going for 20 minutes in midair. You know how, it's animated. Come on. Time is like, it's not even real, but yeah, where he just like drives that spike after the second or third time because he realizes like he gains that inner confidence. He understands that he has this team behind him and he knows that it's like he wants to be here. He wants to win. He wants to keep going. And just seeing that shot was fantastic. The drawing style, the animation that they use for that. And just everything that symbolized was one of my favorite moments. I belted out a scream on that one, just instinctually, because I was just like, that was awesome. Like, I'm so there for you, dude. Like, so much emotion flowing. And ironically, too, I think there were so many. But if I had to, only reason I'm saying this is because it's the first one that pops in my head, because I know there's a million. But also, ironically, it involves him sort of, but it's against the team, can't remember their name, but they're known as the Iron Wall. In the tournament. Data or something like that?
Yeah. You can keep talking.
There it is.
Date Tech.
Date Tech. Interesting name. Anyway, against Date Tech. And because I feel that the wall was so like the way that they use the symbology of like the bird flying, like the crows and then, and the wall and all that kind of stuff with the team really just drove home for me, like the struggle that these people go through, but then, continue to emerge over top of it and they're able to fly over it. So it was kind of amazing to see just all of that synergy put together against this wall that keeps on slapping you back into place, because that is, to lose is terrible, obviously, and to, have points scored against you is awful, but it's really disheartening, which is kind of Asahi's whole character arc in the season anyway. It's incredibly disheartening when you're losing the points due to the fact that they slapped your thing right out of the way. It wasn't that, it's equally as bad if they're hitting it, but it's like really hits home if it's like you're trying to score and they're just like, nope, right? Because it shows so plainly that you are not good enough to get past me. That's it, plain and simple, right? You are just not good enough.
Unbreakable.
Yeah, that's it, right? So to see them finally fly over that wall was fantastic in that part. Do you have a favorite game or match? There's so many good ones.
Yeah.
The Nico one also stuck out to me too. It was a good one.
Yeah. I actually think, I got to be honest, it as far as matches, it's definitely between the Nekoma, I believe is how what the team is, and the team that we faced in the finale, Oba. Because that match, like the Nekoma match was great because I feel like that, and maybe it's just because the stakes were so much higher, but like I almost didn't mind us losing that match because it's it's like, oh cool, we learned the lesson of like we have some star pupils, but again, star pupils don't win the match. We need a connective team, and this team is not extraordinary with one or a few things, but they are incredibly good and consistent. That was the key at keeping that team synergy and that flow. That's how, and his coach even echoes the same sentiments. But the match with Oba, like literally the definition of nail biting. Like I got shortness of breath watching it because especially obviously when we get to the end where they're just fucking going back and forth with this one game point match or game point. I'm like, it was intense, but like that was only intense because you knew how much it mattered if any of those teams lost, right? It was the buildup that we got for the last couple episodes where, you know, you're watching all these players try to read each other's minds and outplay each other and you know, really keep morale. And that's another thing. I love how this show, you know, and in this match specifically, but they did also do this pretty well with Date Tech, where they emphasize how many outside variables do play a factor in a match, right? They talked a lot about like the momentum of the game, right? If it gets twisted and all of a sudden you start losing points, how that can like bring players down. It's like, oh fuck, then you get in your own head. Or like you said, if you as a spiker or you know, the ace or whoever, if you're getting a lot of your spikes and you know, your hits blocked, it can sort of bring your morale down and it cause you to like maybe like lose confidence and not want to call out for shots and stuff. Like there's so many variables that like play into the game that are psychological elements. Like they're not even things that are actually happening in the game, but that they matter just as much. And like that's why it's important. And this is one of the strengths that obviously Suga has, because he just has such a beautiful level of emotional intelligence and he understands all of these people, like down to the brain. Like he understands how they think. He understands what they need to hear when they're fucking up. He understands what they need to hear when they're, you know, kicking themselves because they're down. Like he just knows. He knows how to connect with these people, you know, second nature. And it's absolutely beautiful. But I think all said in stone, I would have to say Oba, only because I love how it kind of showcases like a little bit of why each of these players is as amazing as they are.
That's a fair good.
One of my favorite things about this show is like the moments when some of the teams try to get really tactical and analytical. They do this with Date Tech, with Acai, and with Oba, with people like Tanaka, where they're like, oh, that player is not really good at that thing. Target him, like attack him until he breaks. And one of my favorite things about Karasuno is their strength doesn't come from like an innate understanding of the court or the players, but it literally, much like a wild animal, comes when they're backed into a corner. When you push any of these people, and especially now, even with people like Acai, because they have all these wonderful characters around them to support them, they are no more dangerous when they are pushed into a corner. Like when you kick them, when you attack them, when you beat them down, that is when they get dangerous. That is when they get riled up, because that's when their resolve builds. And that's when, you're done. That's when they sort of get their Zenkai boost. And it's such a beautiful thing to watch, because I love, like, they frame these shots with Hinata specifically really well, where, you know, like I said, a team player will be like, they'll be trying to antagonize somebody or really break them and get in their head psychologically. And you know, the way the game's going, you're like, oh shit, this might be getting to him, because like you could be getting to me. And they pan over to like Hinata, and he just gives them this look of like stone cold energy. Like that's the only way I can describe it, where he just kind of goes like bat-eyed crazy, and you're like, oh, he's not kicking himself. He's like ready to go again. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, and Tanaka has that beautiful moment too, where you're like, no, you can't beat Tanaka down, because he just has so much like raw passion that like that overweighs even like you know how bad he feels about like missing something or whatever. And it's like, I love those moments and the way that they frame these characters, like I said, where it's not, you can't, you know, you would have a easier time just trying to beat them in a fair game than trying to beat Karasuno in a psychological battle, because you're not going to do it. They're, especially now, I would say they're just too strong mentally, and they support each other so well that like you can't do it. You can, even if you get close, which in the game against Oba, you know, to be fair, they do get pretty close with a couple of them. But you know, when Kageyama starts getting down on himself, when Tanaka, like Suga, Nishi, like somebody's there to be like, yo, don't mind, just get back in the game. We got you. Don't worry about it. And I absolutely love it. I think one of my favorite scenes, other than the one I described with the Kageyama Hinata thing, is with Nishinoya. Of course it is. Is when he's like when he's first introduced, and like again he sort of gives his whole philosophy and his ideology behind like why he likes playing volleyball and his connection to Acai, where when you meet him, he's like, oh, you're like, okay, he's going to be the new libero, he's going to be the team player here. But you start to learn quickly that like he has an innate connection to someone like Acai, and if Acai isn't going to play, he's like, well, then I'm not going to play. And it's like Nishinoya is not just about like him being the best on his team, but he wants everybody on his team to also be at their best. It wasn't about like, oh, Acai is the best ace. Like, it's just a tactical move. We need him. He's like, no, Acai's going through some shit. And like, again, echoing like just his position and his personality. He's like, I'm not leaving him behind. Like, I'm not just gonna let him wallow in his self-pity. I'm not like, I'm going to be behind him. And even if I have to push this man, I'm getting him back on this court, and we will be playing together, because there is no other option. It's just like absolutely beautiful.
So with that being said, I'm curious, top 3 characters. You could only pick 3 because of course we have to get some little bit of a hot takes on here and ruffle some feathers. I'll go first to make it easier for you. You're already going to say Nishinoya, so that one's good. Like, that's already a surefire one, and obviously we love all of them. They made the list. So top 3.
Nobody gets that but Joe.
Yeah, I know. If you're watching. Okay. Whew. So and it doesn't have to be the Karasuna team if there's anyone else. I would say top 3 for me would be, and this is really in no particular order, I would say. But I would say Daichi, Tanaka. This word's tough. And I'm gonna say Hinata.
Okay.
And those, I'm actually curious to hear yours. If you had to pick 3.
Come on, man.
Life or death, you have to only pick 3.
Okay. So like 3.5. Okay. So Nishinoya, let's just get that one out the way. And let's see. I think I would say Kageyama and oh man. I feel like I'm fucking pulling teeth here, bro. Oh man, humans weren't built for this. All right. We're just gonna have to do eeny meeny miny mo.
Pull the trigger, Isaiah. Let's do it.
Tsuga, I gotta just pick one. See, but now I feel like I left Acai behind, who was my other choice. And it's like, it's not because fucking...
Dude, you're good, man. That's exactly why I told you only 3 was allowed.
So because you know what? I was trying to decide, and I'm like thinking about like, all like the scenes and stuff, and like any moments where I was like, oh, I'd take a bullet for this nigga, which is true for all of them. But it's like, one of the things that gravitates me towards Kageyama is the fact that, like, again, he's not, very, he's not like Nishinoya or Hinata. He's not very, like, loud and rambunctious and like but he does not have like an ounce less of passion for the game. You know what I mean? Like, he absolutely wants to be on the court as much as Hinata, and I love the fact that he's not willing, again, to like push someone like Hinata down to get there. At least anymore. When they're in the match where Acai comes back, that conversation he has with Hinata, where he's like, "Look, don't worry about trying to be the next best ace. Don't worry about trying to spike every single ball here. As long as I am on this court, you are going to win," right?
Yeah.
And it's just you see that he cares. You know what I mean? And like,
I would argue Kageyama had the most growth in this season
for sure.
100%. Yeah, even more than Hinata. All of them. I think he had the most growth. I would even argue that he's almost more of the main character than Hinata. In this season,
at least in this season.
Yeah,
for sure.
He's really good. I mean, they're all fantastic, but. I don't know. It was a really tough decision, but like I said, I like them all for different qualities, Of
course.
And I'm not gonna lie, I was debating on picking Coach Ukai as one of them because I love him, bro. I just love the fact that he's smoking a cigarette in his convenience
And I also
store.
wanted to make sure that I picked 3 different people than you because I wanted to include.
Of course, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Because Nishinoya's up there too. Yeah, but no, I love Daichi for his. Just to go through it, and it's funny because this is very telling, by the way, because there's always different character molds. Like, every show will have these type of characters, just exemplified in different ways, right? But I like the idea of the Daichi character of like the Captain America, Erwin Smith. Literally, that leadership role to me is very appealing because it's like, they don't necessarily take the spotlight like Kageyama, who's like this natural born talent, or even Nishinoya, right? Or like the protagonist per se, but it's like their role is so important. Like, it is the bedrock of everything that makes this work. There's even points where Ukai is like, I can't even compare to the captain. It's him that knows that it's like, I might not be the best player here. I'm going to try my damn hardest, but I'll be damned if I'm not here to show leadership in times when we need it for these players, and to understand these players and to use them to their best ability and to make them understand each other. Like, he is the glue in essence. Really, he's the needed glue that holds this whole thing together, right? Like they're always coming to him first for that decision. And I think he really shines personally for me. And I think why I liked him so much is because he came out the gate with something that I really liked when he made Hinata and Kageyama come together, which was one of my favorite moments in this whole thing, is when he knew at the end of it too that they were going early in the whole thing. But like the point is that he's like, you're going to do this. And he knew that they were both all-stars. He knew Kageyama especially. And he's like, you will not be on this team unless you could find a way. But he knows that they're going to, and now like there's just so much better because of it. And like I love characters like that are just able to bring out the best in everyone else, your Captain America's, etc. Tanaka is just like an actual homeboy, like, and we'll just like just the actual homie because he's like loud and everything, but like he'll literally be ready to throw down with anyone. Moment's notice, bro. They could be a foot taller than him, and he'll be like, "What'd you say to my boy?" You know what I mean? He's ready to fight you like on a moment's notice, but it's like the amount of passion. And then again for him, really at the end, when Okawa,
yeah.
God damn that name, Okaiwa. Sorry, dude. Okaiwa was targeting him multiple times, but then instead of breaking, he like reversed the role and used that to like amp him up even more. And I love the idea, again, harping on these character types, I love the idea of a character also that they get stronger the more into a corner they're pushed, or they get stronger the more they're beaten down. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Like the Garo kind of character from One Punch Man, or like, you know, to take volleyball, the Tanaka kind of character. I always love that kind of character. It's incredibly inspiring to see that kind of thing. And then Hinata, it's like hard not to, because he's like your typical protagonist, but there's a reason he's the main character, and it's just because he's so willing to put in so much extra work. He's willing to go the absolute distance. He's willing to go another one, right? TJ Khaled, but like just to not stop, right, until he is the absolute best. There's something just incredibly inspiring about that, how kind he is to others and how he wants genuinely for others to grow alongside of him, and like just the basic stuff. Take your anyone take any of your shonen protagonists, and like he's there, but it's like I'd be lying if I said that I still don't like it.
No, the archetype definitely works for a reason. I went into a little bit with Kageyama, why, but like, so Nishinoya, again, I've already stated before, but there's just something incredibly infectious, and again, I'm talking about character archetypes that we gravitate towards. I do gravitate towards these characters that, again, like they're here, they're like, I'm always going to be in your shadow, but like not in the sense of like I'm not good enough, but like I've got your back. So thick and thin, I don't care what comes in front of us. Like we're gonna get through it, and as long as I'm here, you're not falling down. It is incredibly humbling because he's not, like I said, he's incredibly athletic and he's incredibly good at his job, but he never once gets like showboaty about it, or like in the game with Nekoma, when they lose, the first thing he does is go up to the libero of the team and he's like, "You are absolutely amazing. The next time we play, I'm going to be just as better, so like I can put up a better." And it's like he's just incredibly humble. Like it is literally nothing but all inspiring to watch. And like I said, different day of the week, I would choose a different player. Suga, like again, I said a little bit before, there's something about the way that he understands his team. Right, he is a setter like Kageyama, but Kageyama is on that Uchiha type beat. Right, he's got that, you know, the wind calls to him and tells him what to do kind of shit, which Suga doesn't have. But Suga is an equally amazing setter because of the hard work he's put in, because of the nights he stayed up, like planning out, you know, what best positions, the things that he's made up to communicate with his team, the way he understands how to adapt his style to each teammate, depending on who it is and how they're feeling. That level of emotional understanding and control is not something that you see in a lot of people, let alone a lot of players on these teams. And it's what, you know, Okaiwa has a joke, he calls him Mr. Refreshing when they're in their match. You know, because Suga is such a main point in Kageyama's turnaround at the end of the season, Okai was left wondering, he's like, what did Mr. Refreshing do? Like, you know, all of a sudden they switched and now Kageyama's like, he's out of his head. And Suga knows how to push these people, and he knows exactly when to push them and how hard. And that kind of, you know, that's why I love the nickname Mama Suma. That kind of emotional understanding you just don't see in a lot of these, a lot of people and a lot of these players. And I think it puts Suga, on league with somebody. And I love how their relationship, specifically Suga and Kageyama, is, again, like I said, is not one of like, you know, oh, well, fuck you, you're going to be the next setter. It's like Kageyama, as talented as he is, has told Suga several times, like, look, I don't want any pity. I'm here to work, and I'm here to work just as hard as you, and like don't ever for a second like give me a spot because like I'm new, or I'm like, if you genuinely outbeat me, like that's what we're doing, you know. And it's just fuck, dude, I would literally kill for any one of these people. Like, I love them all so
Suga's
much.
fantastic. He is an empath. Like, he just understands people, and he's able to come on the court and completely change the dynamic and change everyone's day. You having a bad day? Now you're having a good one. You know, and it's like, how'd you do that? I just know you. You know, it's like he just reads people, which is so important to have. And he's very inspiring in a different sort of way than some of the, not that anyone isn't inspiring per se, you know, for their merits, but like he's inspiring in like a reversed style of way where it's like he's not on the court slaughtering spikes and setting the ball and catching with these crazy saves, or, you know, being the captain per se, but he's, you know, he is pulling them together and just kind of making them realize the best version of themselves, the positive side of things, and understands people, right, and how they work. And I think just beyond volleyball, that opens a lot of doors for Suga, because, you know, if they don't all make it pro, I think Suga could land a pretty good job with what he's got going on. You know,
therapist.
Yeah, he could be a personal therapist or whatever. Yeah, no, it's funny though. He's inspiring in all sorts of ways too, and they all are. It's fantastic. Still waiting for Shima, but still waiting on him.
Even his homeboy, even Yama got a little bit of growth at the end of season 1.
Yes, he did. And yes,
Suki's just still here drinking mustard and talking smack. You know, you're playing a little catch up, but you'll get there. You'll get there.
It's all right. He's so tall, it's hard for him to see what's going on down below. It's like he's got to smell the coffee. It hasn't hit his nose yet, you know. So he'll get there eventually. But anyway, was there anything else that you wanted to go over in the season? I think we covered a pretty good amount of stuff going on. All right, we'll end it here then, folks. Thank you for watching or listening to our rant gushing about Haikyuu, because it's that good. It really our review, this is very sophisticated. This is serious. No, it was a fantastic show. I highly recommend that you watch it if you have not already. I'm assuming most of you have. So if you have already and you haven't checked out our live reactions, definitely go check that out. The link is in the description down below to AoA Reacts, where we have a good majority of the first season. I would say a little bit over half, and more to come. So stay tuned for that, along with all the other seasons of Haikyuu, because the show is absolutely fantastic. I also wanted to tell anyone watching right now that we are most likely putting a new Patreon benefit to our Patreon list, and that is to get Haikyuu reactions early, being that the show's already out, so we have some catch up to do, which is great, because then we can edit them ahead of time, and then you guys can see them a couple days in advance, or however we plan it there. So if that sounds like something you guys would be interested in, check out our Patreon link down below, and you can check that out. You can support the show while getting that exclusive benefit. It's really a win-win any way you look at it. But beyond that, thank you so much for watching, guys. We appreciate it, and until next time, play on. Peace.
Ninjas and samurais, blazing the kunais. Find me in the leaf of the cloud, screaming out Bankai. We just some ghouls though, who like seeing parts fly. They like what you saying, Goma got more through the storylines. I tested your neck from the start. My hunters gon' come for your heart. I promise you'll land in my boulevard. Left them in one piece, no